The Crazyhouse World Championship. It's Sunday, and this is a crazy House Sunday. There are two matches being played today. First off, blitzbullet versus zyxon. Blitzbullet is in the lead in the Crazyhouse Candidates. He is at 72%. He lost his first match against Legion Destroyer 7-3, but after that he's been relentless, winning all his matches with a big margin as well. So he's playing zyxon, who has only played one match so far. At the standings when it comes to points, zyxon is at the bottom, but make no mistake, this will be a tough match for blitzbullet. Last year he actually lost to zyxon in the candidates, so I expect some really interesting games. And as you can see, before this, zyxon is actually in the lead in their mutual encounters, 7-6. So let's get ready to rumble. zyxon is playing white in the first game, and they will play 10 games regardless of the result. And if blitzbullet can win this match, I think he will take the candidates. No one can stop him after this. I should also mention that right after this match we have xuanet versus pknm coming up, so I will cover both matches. And off we go. Blitzbullet chooses his pet line, the Queenside Fianchetto, and I think this is a weakness in blitzbullet's repertoire. Although he handles the opening, rather weak opening, quite well, this is definitely a weakness. zyxon doesn't seem to prepare anything particular here. He just grabs some extra space. All of a sudden black might consider giving a piece for 2 pawns. But meanwhile, white is enjoying the extra space here. You could also consider grabbing it with a bishop, pawn takes, knight takes, just to hit this bishop here on f2. But I suspect that this is not a good opportunity because the queen is well situated here on the half-open, then half-open the half-open e-file, I should say. So white is just planning to castle short and finish his development here. Actually, black does go for this trade, I should say. Trading. Well, you should probably tuck it away. Although, can you... I'm thinking like this. Bishop here. Could you play knight f4? Knight takes, queen takes e5, queen e7. You give up a pawn, but look at all these threats here. A queen trade is coming. That looked dangerous. Instead, white chooses a modest move, just securing the bishop here on e3. And this is precisely the kind of very murky position I suspect in this game. And this is where zyxon really excels. He's good at thinking outside the box. And blitzbullet can't play his standard lines. He's very, very strong when he comes to a position where he's familiar. So a very aggressive move here for white. He wants to sacrifice the bishop and just weaken the black king side. So I suspect pawn takes, bishop takes, pawn g7. White will just slug his way forward. But I'm a bit suspicious here. Does he really have enough? That was kind of an awkward decision. Trading a knight for the... Because now you have a knight at f5. Let's say pawn g7, bishop takes, and king takes. You have immediately knight f5. So that was a strange decision, I think. My relationship to these two players. I'm not currently in a relationship with either player. Oh, just kidding. First of all, zyxon is one of the original Fix Bughouse gangsters. He used to play a lot when I was playing. 20 more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago almost. So obviously I know him really well. He's from Sweden, so I know him in real life as well. I don't have a relationship at all with blitzbullet, other than that he's a strong Crazyhouse player who I've been following. By the way, welcome to those of you who are watching. And this was also a slightly odd decision. Do you want to play pawn d3 here, maybe to break loose of prison? But queen takes, bishop takes, pawn takes g6. You actually might consider taking g6 here. Knight takes, pawn takes. Or is that too much? There is also pawn takes, knight takes, pawn f7. So I'm sure Morten is, the zyxon is thinking about some sort of queen sacrifice here. But can he make it work? Yes, he did go for the g6 square, and now he has to be careful. Rook here. I think white is safe as long as it doesn't give away a knight. A knight on g3 and it's all over. Mate on h2. Strong defense here by blitzbullet. There's a bishop check here that covers e2. I was surprised that it didn't go for the bishop check rather than this. Knight checks coming. Still no knight for black. Now the knight came, but now everything seems covered here, but by at least 2 pieces. Epic game. There is an escape route this way. But was he afraid of knight c4 check? Guess we won't know. Now everything comes with check pretty much. This knight covers g3. Where is the decisive? Can you take here? This looks like... I thought maybe rook g1 there was a forced mate. Instead, white wins. I told you so. Zyxon is dangerous. Let's have a look there at that game. Actually, black is better here. And I thought maybe... Oh, knight takes e4. The computer likes knight takes e4. I was a bit surprised because of knight f5. And this is, I mean, this is very hard to calculate. Immediately taking on g6 here. F takes g6 was apparently better, keeping that bishop in hand. So here black is winning. Yeah, I should have used his queen here on h6. Actually, that's much better. And here, yeah, bishop at d3. I was surprised he didn't play bishop at d3, but white is still okay here. And rook takes g4. Superb control here by Zyxon. And what about this move? Knight c4 is too dangerous. Here pawn f7 was better, and actually black is probably surviving here if he takes with the king instead. But this is... Oops. Yeah. Rook at g1 here. I told you, rook at g1, this is mating. Because if the rook takes, there's a mate on f2, and this is just winning by force. Let's go back to the game. And a lot of things have happened here. Sorry, I was so excited about that last game. And Zyxon actually managed to crack this defense last year. The fianchetto. He is keeping the option of c5 here, trading a pawn. He didn't trade a pawn, but instead he's eyeing g3, hoping to okay. Board is on fire here. I'm just gonna get rid of this annoying guy. It just keeps challenging me. And there's a possible queen trade here, but I wonder who it favors. It's hard to tell. I mean, pawn f6 maybe, yeah. Threatening to check here on h6 with the usual smothered mate. But this, don't forget this knight covering f7. And also, black is having a little fun here by himself. Check, 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 check. Okay, so surely this isn't enough. This is threatening rook h8, followed by pawn takes here. Black had a little bit of fun, but there's no way he's getting a heavy piece for g1 here. So in case knight takes, rook h8 and pawn g7, and white is just winning. So I have a question here. Has the chess boom in neighboring Norway in any way affected your country? Yeah, I suppose it's some way. We are envious of the chess boom, but I can't say we have more players or anything. Sorry, I wanted to look at it from this perspective. And black is actually fine here. Pawn e3. That is the safe opener. So this was worse. White got control of the board, and knight f5. He's cruising here. This is just a type of position where blitzbullet is so hard to handle. So black was trying something very interesting here. And actually knight takes g4. He can play knight at g4. Because it covers h6 as well. But this was simply not enough. He must have miscalculated this. Okay, next game. And apparently blitzbullet is set on playing b6 the entire match. I wonder about this. Will this... Black thought he had it all figured out, but pawn takes here, knight takes f7. Looks very dangerous for both players, I should add. Take, knight takes. Do you take on... No, he went to... This is odd. Okay, so this is the idea. Just abandon the king side. Flee to the queen side where you have this fianchetto set up. But a problem for black here, you might want to play bishop takes here, queen takes, bishop takes here, but then it's made in two, queen here, bishop or pawn at b7. So that's actually not an option. Can you take the bishop? Knight takes. Or is that too much? Seems a bit optimistic. He plays another optimistic line. So now the question is, do you take the queen Let's say take the queen, take the queen here. That looked favorable for white, I think. But this is also very interesting. You want to take here and deliver mate on b8 with the rook you have in hand. And zyxon isn't the nervous kind of guy. He's a very objective player. Many of you might have preferred to take with the bishop or the knight, but he wanted to keep this threat here. Although this is an interesting take. I wonder, can you take on a7? Or what do you do? So there's a mating threat here, and after this I would consider so what happens now? Bishop takes, queen takes, rook a7. Oh, maybe pawn b7 and rook bishop a6. Very nice. Oh, this is looking very good now for white. So black decides to just abandon ship here. A bishop check here, pick up this with check, pick up the rook. Should be enough. Or possibly check here with the bishop instead. Because the bishop here would have protected e4 from any potential knight checks there. Is he thinking knight at c6? Because if he goes this way, you have another knight coming to e5. Plenty of time here for white to work out all the details. But that was a huge surprise to me. I'm not sure what he was thinking here. Oh, what is this? Oh, zyxon just blundered everything there. Looked like he had an easy win, and now he's just dead lost. I wouldn't be surprised if he resigned here. Queen e2 is coming. Damn. He was so winning there. The computer actually suggests castling short here. Yeah, I was thinking maybe queen takes. What happens? Yeah, maybe it's too much. But this was, and this is also interesting. I suggested taking on f6. Yeah, then just take the rook. And king takes d2. Excellent move here. And this is just hopeless. Bishop at b7, indeed. Covering e4 also is the most precise move. But this should be an easy win as well. Yeah, knight at c6. Just take the rook. You will survive the few checks that black has. And now the queen covers h8 and white just panicked. Oh well, let's see what happens here. And we have a very interesting line here. Let's see this from the beginning. This is the line that Zyxon played last year as well, trading an early pawn here. And this should be critical. The idea is to take here on h3, and then you just want that extra pawn to crash through on the h-file. But maybe blitzbullet has done his homework here. It seems as if he has. But it certainly is an interesting position anyway. I mean, black could maybe take twice and then queen takes here. So that is why white is interrupting the black plans by placing this pawn here, closing the h-file. But look at this move. That is a beauty. Pawn takes, and this bishop protects the pawn on h2, so h3 is mate. And I think this is it. There is no defense, no way to cover h3. What a beautiful move. Queen takes h4. Lovely. And I'm a bit surprised that Zyxon hasn't prepared anything special here. So he tries the line from the first game, which was okay, I suppose. Black chooses another move here, and this makes sure white doesn't castle in this direction. But I was thinking maybe b4 here to put pressure on this bishop. Maybe he's preparing b4, knight c4. So we have 2-2 here. Nice to see so many of you watching. Do we have any predictions from the chat? Who do you think will win this? So this is kind of what he was hoping for here, I think. Can you maybe just castle to the queen side here in a little while? Watch out for moves like knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, queen takes, pawn d4. When you can start harassing the black queen. Yay! 6-4 for Zyxon. I'm hoping you're right. So maybe this wasn't precisely the version that Zyxon was hoping for. I thought maybe instead of b4 just hiding on the queen side was an option. Maybe. Plenty of moves here. Bishop at a3 could be a possibility. But I suppose bishop at a3, queen takes, knight takes, bishop c5, picking up this is probably very good for black. But no, certainly this is interesting. And you see that black only has diags in hand. And white has pretty much everything on his light squares here. So how do you beat someone when you only have diags in hand? If the other guy is controlling one diagonal. I suppose the short answer, you don't. I think this is good for white. Note also that white might consider grabbing this pawn at some point. So if you take the rook here, queen takes, bishop takes, rook check, rook d1, might have been good. But this is even better now, hitting the queen. And you need to be really careful here with when you're playing black. Although, what do you do after bishop at a6? You don't have any pieces to interpose with. Bishop at a6. Is there something forced that I'm not seeing? Yeah, maybe knight takes here. And the king is probably getting mated here. It's out on the board. Where is the mate? I suppose you could maybe wait for a second and play bishop pawn b5, but you do want to kill the king as quickly as possible. Is h4 the right move? Because I'm thinking, what am I thinking? Wasn't h4 winning? Yeah, maybe this is winning with the same idea here. And simply e5 here. This queen will come back and kill the black king. Impressive win here by zyxon. Hi there, Jeremy Durham. Yeah, that was winning. And two lovely, lovely wins here for zyxon. So h6 looks like a mistake. It weakens the king side. Although queen h4 check, yeah, that does make a lot of sense, because you can't play g3 because the knight is hanging. And here, castling long, that was what I suggested. b4 just looks a bit dangerous. And this was a mistake. With the queen in hand after pawn f6, I think it's just over. Knight takes here, and it's, I suppose, this is forced. h4 was indeed the right move, forced mate. And after this, white is most likely still winning. But apparently king g4 is winning for black. Have you... yeah, but the problem is after this and this, there's a very neat little mate here. Ta-da! And you have a checkmate here covering both f4 and g3. So this was winning. Let's get back, and he's going for this line again. Fascinating opening play here. And you know what? This is super dangerous. This is so dangerous. If black can take here with check. I mean, isn't this just over then? Pawn takes to secure the g4 square. Or maybe you want this pawn here to cover the h3 square. So pawn takes here. Yeah. Take with this pawn. And there are numerous ways to continue here. Can you even take with the queen on h4? I think zyxon picked this safe option here because knight g5 you simply give up the queen. And this looks utterly hopeless. Yeah, this is really putting the question too wide. I like this idea by zyxon. Blitzbullet trying to conjure up something. He wants black to use whatever pieces he has in hand. Just spend it. So pawn here, maybe then he can survive by playing bishop g2 maybe. That at least covers some squares, but oh, the rook is hanging as well. And you can under promote if you like. Oh, this is hopeless. There is absolutely nothing here. So probably under promotion, yeah. Keep the checks going. King f4, there's queen f5. Hopeless. And it's 4-2 zyxon. Swedish hero has done it again. In theory, this is good for white, but clearly taking on h4 was just too much. Actually, there's a forced mate already. Knight f3 check. Look at that. Indeed, you take with the e-pawn, and I wonder, is this too much? Let the computer think for a little while. Yeah, it was too much. But this is a safe option, because white simply doesn't have anything. He has one check and two checks, and now it's over. So under promotion, and yeah, the fitting finish would have been this. So I see that zyxon is playing something different now, wasting a tempo on a3 just to avoid any pins here. So this is basically what I play against d4 with black. You want to swing this knight over. However, when the knight comes to g6, h4 is really a pain in the ass for black. And I'm a bit surprised that white doesn't play h4 here. I don't like the black position after h4. Oh well. So obviously bishop takes here is an option. Pawn takes, queen takes, pawn e5. It's also tempting to take g6, because pawn takes, maybe bishop takes f7. And theoretically, I think this line is just unsound for black. And let's just toy with the possibility that blitzbullet will make it to the World Championship final or the Candidates final. There's been rumors that Katask won't be defending his title. This b6 line won't just cut it, because his opponent will analyze it, and it will be a huge weakness that his opponent will take advantage of. Where is this queen going? Apparently it's not going anywhere. So instead of getting chased around and probably getting in more trouble, black is choosing, hopefully, a good opportunity to give give up the queen. If you take here, pawn a6 will come, and that's probably a huge problem. But I wonder if you can take with the queen anyway. Pawn takes and pawn a6, because if you take the queen, you just take the bishop and you have enough to mate the light squares, I think. And this is probably what zyxon thought as well. You do want to keep your queen here so you can play pawn at a6. So he spends another piece just to keep the white forces out of a6. But surely this is too much. So simultaneously threatening to play pawn a6, but also covering the d3 square. Knight c2, king d2 shouldn't be a problem for white. And I wonder, can you take with the queen here? Can you? Queen takes, pawn a6. Maybe. Just maybe. He goes for queen takes d3. So I suppose pawn a6 here. That has to be the idea. And by the way this looks, there's no way black will get out of this alive. Pawn here, bishop check, closing the exit, and queen b7 mate. 5-2 zyxon. Wow. So blitzbullet won't be winning this match. And he has to be a bit careful here. He can't afford to lose big either. And that's interesting. He chooses another move here. He doesn't go for the c5 idea, but instead he chooses a more conservative setup here, which is kind of surprising because the other line brought him success. So why switch? This seems more like blitzbullet's cup of tea. He finds these moves so quickly. This is really annoying, especially when you've played h6. I was thinking maybe you can allow the knight to take here, just play c4 and open the f5 for the rook. But okay, white prefers to protect the bishop. Surely c4 is coming, and then what is enjoying a nice initiative here. But black doesn't have any big weaknesses, except maybe the f5 pawn. This looks like a concession, but on the other hand, what is the knight doing here? Okay, so white redirects his knight just to attack the g6 pawn. Do you play rook g8? It's not a very pretty move. Instead, black goes forward here. If the bishop takes, you can take on h4, which is probably good for black, I would say. Or is pawn e6 something? No, it looks dangerous. Pawn e6 and take here because of the the open G file. One way to handle this would probably just to capture and play bishop g7 and then castle short. But zyxon has no intention of going for defense here. Wow. I mean, don't you just take, snap take here on e2? Something like take here, queen takes, knight f3, and then it's really close. I was thinking maybe knight check here, but on the other hand, this bishop on h1 is actually depriving the white king from going to h1, so maybe it's good for black to keep this bishop here. And you probably don't want to swap here, because after this the white king can get out of his prison. But rather you would want to go back and push the h-pawn forward, I think. Something like that. Maybe h2 is a problem here for white. So creating some luft, but what kind of luft is this? Because the king isn't actually getting somewhere. And this looks like desperation. Just be careful here so you don't open the e5. That's why black captures on e3. And now d4 is hanging. Nice play here by zyxon, who I think will win this. Okay. So last effort here by blitzbullet. Hanging on h4, but alas, pawn h2, rook g1 looks winning for black. But what on earth is this? This just looks bad. I have no idea here what white is planning. So many strong moves for black. And I suppose you just take the knight. Well, this is just hopeless for blitzbullet. And in case you think that something is hanging here, there is also always a knight fork on f3. Threatening mate here. And nothing to be done here. Queen takes, h takes, and the black king is perfectly safe. Perfectly safe. Or was it? Queen takes, knight. Okay, that's mate. I'm just gonna check one more thing. And congratulations, Zyxon, who wins this. So here white missed an opportunity. Pawn g7. And pawn g7 again. Okay. And knight g7 was just bad. This is just over. But let me just check. Oh, black doesn't need to take on g5. But is this? Oh, nothing. So same line, but this time black took on e4 instead. And a queen sack. Super sharp position. Threatening mate on e2. Threatening g2. And I was thinking, no. Maybe not, by the way. No, nothing. Queen e4 seemed a bit odd, though. Is that really what you want to play? Because this queen is very easily trapped. And now there are all sorts of problems. The queen is hanging, knight g5 or knight e5 or knight at could come. And also knight check here closes this little exit because c6 isn't available. And what is the material count here? Piece up for black, but a pawn extra for white. So I suppose white could just switch to playing solid here. Maybe queen c2, protect the c2 square and the pawn on c3. It does seem a bit passive though. On the other hand, if you take here, knight c2 check isn't So nice. Zyxon is taking his time here. I would go for the safe option here, I think. Just keep... White has such beautiful pawns here. So why waste it? Okay, so he plays the super sharp capture here. And black might actually have considered rook c2, knight takes. So we'll see a positional struggle here instead. And c2 is a problem for white. And also pawn a2, just queening, could be a problem. I don't like this position for white at all. Pawn a2 should be almost game over, I think. Also, there are knight checks on b1. This looks promising as well. Bishop takes, knight takes, and I don't think you can take here. Knight b4 check is too dangerous. And maybe go to the corner and threaten b3. Also threaten to invade here on c2. But we can wait. And this is a nice defensive setup. And I kind of like this idea, tucking the knight away in the corner, but whatever. And after the bishop takes here, it's just over. Okay, last game of the match. I think Zyxon just got outplayed there. Castle short is the preferred alternative, and this was too much. Although, maybe, no. And this was a strong move, queen e4. Provoking a passive pawn drop, and then what was the best move here? Queen at b3, that's the same idea. Yeah, something like this. The advantage with queen b3 is that you can take here without getting the hit by the knight. So, back to the last game, and once again, Zyxon is playing the early c5, and now he plays c5 at the earliest possible moment. Maybe this is too early. He gives up another piece for a pawn, and this time he's getting a piece back. So king takes, pawn e4, I suppose. The idea is take and knight at e3, so white quickly covers this diagonal. And this is a very ugly bishop check here. Knight e4 check could come at any point. And I think white has everything under control here. Blitzbullet knows his way around these positions. And where is the... yeah, it's just lost for black here. So, 2 fine victories at the end by blitzbullet, but zyxon takes this 6-4, and congratulations, Vladimir, you predicted the correct outcome. And you know what? This isn't over yet, because pknm is playing. So let's switch to this match. This looks like it's the first game of the match. pknm versus xuanet. And these guys, I think, are at the bottom of the table. Yeah, pretty much. But don't make any mistakes here. They are 2 very strong players. pknm playing white here, and xuanet going for an early pawn push in the center, preparing it. Just seems odd to allow it so easily. So black has sacrificed some material here. 1 pawn. But where to go with the queen? If you go here, knight takes d4 will follow. I suspect that black could have some compensation here. And it looks easier to play white here. You have these 2 pawns in hand. And what to do with black here? Not so easy to come up with a plan. I mean, white could just pawn f4, pawn e5 or something. And what's up with xuanet's time? Something is wrong here. He must have lost connection or something. Oh, that's not good. Let's see what happens here. Maybe his wife caught him playing Crazyhouse or something. And he's getting a whooping. Let's have a quick look at the table. Have they filled in? No, zyxon still 50% here. So let's see what happens. I'll talk to pknm, see what happens. So apparently he needs a break, a 10-minute break. Someone came visiting. So what do we do now? I think I'll go for a commercial break. How do you do this? Maybe I'll make myself visiting. I'll earn a hot dog if you guys watch the commercials here. So what do we do now? So I can't do this either. Oh well. Let's see if Zyxon has something he can say. We can. And why couldn't I? Press this button. Oh, thank you, Zyxon. He feels he got more chances than he should have. And maybe he and blitzbullet were both a bit rusty. Well, I don't think blitzbullet is rusty. So the early c5 line was very interesting, I think, against the fianchetto. So even though maybe theoretically not a super opening, it earned black some serious chances and a couple of nice wins. Yeah, the last couple of games were clearly in blitzbullet's favor, but I think he deserved to win the match. 6-4. And while we are waiting, let's have a look at the finish of this game. So actually the computer says it's bad. It's not bad per se, because black is actually quite good anyway. But I think this idea is, the long-term idea is so interesting here. Just to snatch the pawn there and just to make sure you have enough to break through. So the computer thinks it's 2 questions marks. But what do you play here as white? Okay, so he has some sort of idea here with knight takes c6, b takes c6, and pawn g6. That looks like some Finnish guy should have a look at, but this is certainly good for black. And what a finish here. Queen takes h4. Yeah, I mean, the computer says the g3, h3, bishop g2 line is bad for white, but in practical play, just as you say, it's very nice. It's hard to punish. But in this game, white sure got punished. White resigned, and the problem is this little move. So we'll see if we get any more play here. I have some math students waiting in line, so I can't sit around here waiting forever. But let's have a look at the calendar first. Tomorrow, Spinal Tap versus xuanet. I won't be able to cover that. And maybe I can cover one of the Tuesday games. I'm not sure. And I won't be able to cover the Thursday game either. So what is the overall standings now? And blitzbullet is probably down to second now when it comes to game percentage after losing this. And he only has he has 5 matches remaining. One player who won't be able to win this is Little Plotkin. He has only 3 matches remaining and he's at 51%. And I think he has 3 tough opponents at the end here. Zyxon, Mugwort, and Bugzilla. He should be happy if he breaks 50%, I think. But the only undefeated player so far is Fumitox. He's won all his 4 matches so far, beating Little Plotkin, Bugzilla with a hefty margin, and the pknm 9-1, very impressive as well, and Spinal Tap 6-4. So maybe Fumitox will be the one who wins this. So I'm not sure what happens with the first game, if they play it again or what they do. I mean, it's not really pknm's problem that xuanet gets visitors, and I think white was better at the end. He sure is, and quite clearly so. So it just doesn't make sense that they should play the game again. I'll stick around for a little while longer, but the clock is ticking. So no more matches are scheduled. And Little Plotkin versus Zyxon will be a very crucial match, as is Mugwort versus Blitzbullet. Blitzbullet has Mugwort, xuanet, Fumitox, and that will be sort of the moral final of the candidates, well, at least so far. And Spinal Tap and Bugzilla. Tough matches to go here. And it seems like Zyxon is like a green kryptonite to Blitzbullet. Zyxon won last year. He won again this year. Zyxon drew his first match, but after beating Blitzbullet, he could very well be in the race for the first place. He needs to win a couple of matches big. And maybe that's not Zyxon's forte. He can beat just about anyone out there. But he's not the kind of guy that wins 10-0 or 9-1. Other than Blitzbullet and Fumitox, and possibly Zyxon, I think the middle field here, they're just beating each other and not big enough to be in the race. So I think they started playing again. 1-0 pknm, and he is choosing some sort of French wedge here. And where is this fellow going? Putting pressure on d4. And you don't really want to take e3, because after white castles, the f file is a huge problem for black. Instead, he goes for a little tactical trick. If the knight takes, black will take e5. And instead, this looks okay for black, doesn't it? Bishop d7, maybe, but yeah, maybe inserting this move. Maybe even h5. Very active play here by black. And maybe now when the queen moves, bishop d7, threatening to take here. I suppose white needs to take c6, bishop takes. And that looks fine, I suppose. Probably not f5. The king has a possibility to run in case white crashes through here. Let's say pawn takes, bishop takes, knight f6. Bishop takes, pawn takes, you can just grab the bishop probably. And if knight g7 comes, you run in this direction. So it would seem as if white is getting a bit dominated here in the opening. The black forces are well coordinated. Maybe bishop g4, just pick up e2. Seems very natural. Yeah, this is a complete disaster for white. Just getting kicked around. I guess to go to h6. And I don't like the look of this at all for... Oh, come on. You just take it and take with the bishop, and that's a free pawn. Just postponing your problems, not solving any problems. Free pawn for black. And another knight can land on f5. Just positionally lost for white here. So maybe knight b5. Or possibly take e2 first. Knight check here is really annoying. And you could just pick up e5 if you like. Black prefers to take with the bishop instead, just to kick the queen a little bit, and I suspect black will run to the queen side. No, it doesn't. Well, this knight is sort of trapped. Knight, bishop f6 possibly. Just protecting this. You want to pick up the knight for free. White managed to get a pawn for it, but that's not much. So immense board control here for black. You could play pawn d2, pick up just about every piece, but this also is completely crushing Look at e5. e5 is hanging here also. So just take e5. And I suspect that black will resign pretty soon. Two zero pknm. And what happens here? My student sent me an email, so I got good news. I am in no rush. White giving up a queen for two pieces. A queen and a pawn for two pieces. And he has some... I wouldn't call it great compensation, but some compensation. The problem is the extra pawn here, because after knight f3, black can kick it with pawn g4. And what on earth? Okay, so pawn takes, pawn e7. And this pins the f7 pawn, so bishop takes g6 was probably a threat. And I suppose you could go bishop takes, rook takes, bishop takes g6. That should give white plenty. This is much more passive, and you lose a piece anyway, so why didn't he go for bishop takes f7? So I suspect white will take and play knight e4 just to trade the defenders. But you need to be a bit careful here around the king also. So this is interesting. And now f7 is hanging. Oh boy. And with the rook in hand and this diagonal open, take with a knight. Pawn e3, I guess. You don't want to allow some bishop take, king take, knight g4 check tricks. But this is starting to look very promising for white. These light pieces are just dominating the board. You want to pick up the rook, maybe play pawn f7. You could go for knight e4, trade off this, and you have possible mate on h7 also. So easy to play white here. get this at all. Do you play pawn e6 maybe? Because it would be nice to keep the bishop around the king. And if the queen moves, why not simply take the bishop? Yeah, this is looking very difficult for black. So he decides to give up. Give up the queen, but white returns some material here. Does he take with a knight possibly? But it's not so easy to mate here. I suppose you could go pawn e7, because then there is a mate. Let's say you take somewhere here, you just take the rook, rook g8 check, and queen h7 mate. Somehow you want to get rid of this knight. I'm thinking, is there... You have one extra rook, so almost rook at g8. White just tries to keep the checks going, and then bishop at g6. You probably just pick up this pawn. And maybe put the bishop here. And then the pawn on h7. And black just isn't getting the pieces he needs to have a counter punch. White is keeping everything under control here. So I was thinking take h7, but threatening knight f7 check, followed by a mate in the corner. Look at all that material. Oh, it's hopeless. Yeah, knight check and mate in the corner. 3-0 pknm. Who sure needs a win, and a big one, in order to leave the bottom of the table. And isn't this some sort of theory line here where you can take e4 and play pawn g4? I saw Yasser Seiravan play something like this with black. Not sure it was good for black though, but So this is an interesting move, putting pressure here on d3, and it's not so easy to defend it. You would like to maybe move the knight, but then e4 is hanging. And the question is, what on earth is white doing after this? Because if the pawn takes, there's pawn e2, which is just over. And if the knight takes, and also d4 is hanging. Isn't this just good for black? Okay, so there's a piece sacrifice, but then what? So this is the idea. Take here with the check, knight at c6 with the fork, or knight at f7 with the fork. But I'm not sure if the check on c6 is so dangerous, because it costs white 2 pieces to gain the queen. So maybe king e8, pawn f7 to capture here with check. King e8, pawn f7, yeah. Let's go here immediately instead. Because now you can take on d8 if you like to. If you like to, but you could also go pawn e2. And that's a lot of wood for the queen. That's just a ton of pieces as compensation. So if black can survive here for a couple of moves, hitting f6, threatening pawn g7. Not so easy for black here. Possibly pawn e7, take g7. White has an entirely different idea here. And black is very low on time. I think I liked pawn b5 more. Hitting the queen and also cutting off the queen. Because in that case you could have just taken the queen now. Wonder, do you attack the knight with the pawn here somewhere? White was threatening to take on f8, hoping black wouldn't see it, but this seems like a strong response. Because now f7 was just hanging, and black will get those pieces on the board quickly. Reaching safe haven over at the queen side. Possibly threatening to take here at some point. For instance, after rook takes, bishop takes g2 looks very dangerous. Maybe pawn h3. Ooh, white shouldn't have allowed this. Pawn c6. And who's getting mated here? Is it black? Yeah, it's black. Wow. pknm was winning there for sure. That was an unnecessary loss, to say the least. Rook at g4. Still, this is good. Rook at g4. But you need to go to c8 here. Okay, c6 was bad because of pawn at c6. Okay, 3-1 in favor of pknm. And to me it looks like white is giving black pretty much what he wants here. A firm grip on the king's side. Looking dubious for white, I think. Do you continue with g5, maybe to cut off this bishop? Getting a pawn for g2, or maybe heavy. Maybe black overdid it somehow here. He's trying to trade pieces, feed the attack. He wants a heavy piece for the corner, but obviously white is not giving that voluntarily. And black needs to look out a little bit because bishop takes, king takes, bishop takes could be coming. Why I stopped playing Bughouse? Well, I had been playing Bughouse on the internet on Fix for 5 years, 4 hours a day, 367 days a year, and it cost me the relationship with the mother of my daughter, and I just didn't think it was worth it, I suppose. Also, it made me a worse person, I think. I had some anger management problems, and staying at the top just does things to you. And those things aren't always pleasant. So that's the reason. So what has a strong grip here? Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the years I was playing Bughouse, and I was probably the best players for a few years before I started playing on the internet. Also, Bughouse was such a young sport, and when I came to the internet, I was just years ahead of everyone else. So I had a few nice years before the opponent started copying my moves and my game. And obviously nowadays it's a completely different game, especially on the internet with the pre-moves and everything. And I wouldn't want to go back to playing Bughouse again, I think. Other than just for fun, having a beer and a laugh. Because it's too fast. And I think the pre-moves ruin the game on the internet. Playing over the board, on the other hand, is another thing. White is just playing safely here. No way black is getting a heavy for the corner. Okay, he can pick up a heavy here, but white has such great cover here for G2. In fact, I would probably just take G2 here. Pawn takes, bishop takes, and play it like a game of chess. And you go pawn f7, maybe? And that seemed really unnecessary, because now black has the rook for the corner. That was sloppy. Rook h1 mate. Very sloppy play there by pknm. Wait, what? What is happening? He missed mate in one? Oh my god. So I suppose the game continues. Oh, he could have taken with a knight as well there. And now xuanet has messed this up completely. And why didn't he take the bishop with check, I wonder. What a fitting way to end that misery of a game. That was not the best game in this tournament. I mean, just take the bishop with check. Literally with check. And don't take with the king here. Why on earth would you want to take with the king? So 3-2 in favor of pknm. Oh, and just to show you the missed mate in one. Here, rook at h1. And this was Black's dream the entire game, and he missed it when they got the chance. Mr. Saban. And who is Mr. Saban? Remind me. Maybe he has won a game. Is that Hasse or who is it? Yeah, Hasse. Yeah. I'm not reading it. Yeah, he probably did. I don't recall, but if he said he won a game, he probably did. Yeah, of course. I didn't read Hasse here, but I seem to recall you were Hasse. And Sabon, what a nice little, what's it called? Typsnitt. But he lives in, he told me, he lives in Switzerland or somewhere. But you're still in Uppsala? And this is very sharp. Both sides with weaknesses. And can Black do something on this? Open G-file. Before White just takes the rook and just demolishes Black here on the last rank. Well, the community back then was very toxic, the Bughouse community. And that certainly contributed to my experience. And I have to confess that I probably contributed to the what was it called, toxicity, myself. And I think the Crazyhouse community is so much better in every way. Oh, Hasse, we need to get a beer somewhere. Sometime when I go to Uppsala next time, I'll make sure to contact you. Go out and grab a beer. It probably is, and also another factor is that the Bughouse interface is much worse than what we were using when we played at Fix. So I prefer this Crazyhouse, although my Crazyhouse skills are far worse than my Bughouse skills. I wonder if you can you pick up the knight? Because I would like to play knight at g7 instead. I was thinking bishop takes and let him take here. Just move into the corner and maybe that's good for white. Maybe it's not. Actually, I spoke to Sunkan many times when I went to Uppsala. I was offering him a beer, but I'm not sure if he thinks I'm trying to collect an old debt or something. But we cleared that actually. He owed me some money for many years, but he sent me a copy of his book with a really funny text on the first page. So I would absolutely love to take a beer with you and Sunkan. And I'm not sure what's going on here at all. Doesn't white have a ton of pieces he can put to work here? So white calmly just putting some pieces on the board, but rather passively. And I don't like the look of this at all for black. I mean, should be fairly hopeless. But who knows? Actually, maybe black is better here. One more move, that's all it takes. Then black is crashing through here. And this is not only defensive, you're threatening stuff like knight at h4 sometimes. And that was bad. No, 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 no. You can't afford this as black. You're getting mated here. You are getting mated. Aren't you? Maybe not. This is another epic game, and I don't know what's happening here. So I'll just stay quiet. Surely this is mate. Everything comes with check now. And why didn't he play rook h1 here? Rook h1, king takes, queen h2 mate. Because this is also mate. 4-2 pknm. Actually, Hasse, I was in Uppsala in August playing Bughouse with pknm, and we won the Swedish championships. Oh, you got an advertisement. Well, you could always subscribe to my channel. At the moment, I have zero subscribers. So maybe I'm not as popular as Hikaru or whomever. But I'm so much more fun. And this is some creative stuff from xuanet. And actually, I don't think it's bad either. It makes a lot of sense here. Just pushing the h-pawn. You have control of these two squares, and where does this go? Yeah, I seem to we were playing in some Times Square outside, I don't know, somewhere in the central part. Beating Milton Panzer and some other guy. Well, I know both guys. Yeah. So Zyxon was mentioning knight c3, h4, bishop e5. That did seem critical. Well, time-wise, this opening has been a huge success for white. How is... Okay. So he just gives up a piece. I was thinking, how was queen d3? I suppose d5. And I had some crazy idea here, but I suppose it doesn't work. And if black takes here, obviously white gets compensation here. Taking with the knight, actually threatening mate on f7. So basically what you're saying is black shouldn't have played h4. He should have played maybe d6 instead. Yeah, okay. Very interesting insights from zyxon. And if you take with the knight, f5 is hanging. And I suppose you go something like pawn f7, or take here first. But then pawn takes, pawn f7. You could take e5 with check. So he goes knight f7 instead. Interesting. And I wonder, what is the biggest problem? Is it if you take the rook or the pawn, or... And isn't white just winning here? I mean, oh, this looks too dangerous. Take c3. Pawn d2. Or maybe bishop d2, just to keep the pawn in reserve. Yeah, bishop d2. Yeah, maybe you're right. So is black messing this up? It feels like you can escape now. Simply pawn g2, and actually white is winning. What a game again. Well, you can't accuse these guys of playing boring. Yeah, I had this in mind. Just castle short here. It looks very strong. But isn't this too dangerous? Apparently pawn at d2 is equal. Okay. I thought this would be winning, but pknm is a tough defender. So, okay, bishop g4 is equal. And here white is just winning. What a ridiculous defense there. Nice one. And what happens here? pknm playing e5 for a change. And this isn't this a bit unusual? Queen e2. Yeah, nice little insight there from Blunderman. Well, I've seen this so many times. Players just blaming their partner. And I think it's not as obvious in Bughouse as it is in tennis, let's say in doubles, who is the culprit when a team is playing badly. Maybe I'll stream Bughouse sometime. I haven't tried it yet. I'll speak to Night Tour, who's the main streamer when it comes to Bughouse. See if he invites me to his show sometime. Yeah, Queen e2 seemed a little bit off. But what do I know? I'm not the theory guy. And I suspect that black is looking for an opportunity to give back some material at some point. But this looks strange. I mean, why do you play it like this? Because if black takes here, the knight is much worse on d4 than it was on f3, I think. So I would most likely just take d4 and be happy after white takes back. Black takes the opportunity to put one more piece on the board. I'm not sure it was necessary. So that might have been better off maybe at f4 at some point, rather than being passively placed on b6. And I still don't get it. What is wrong with taking on d4? Because white suddenly loses control of important squares after the knight recaptures. And I would have preferred to have this position with the queen here back on c4 and this knight still in my hand. Yeah, take care there, Hasse. Nice to see you, as always. The thing with Bughouse, you really need to have a deep understanding of the game in order to see clearly who is responsible. Because you see so many players, they sack and they sit and they put so much pressure on their partner to provide them, and when they are one piece short of mate and a few seconds, they will always blame their partner. Why didn't you play faster? Why didn't you give me the right pieces? And maybe they should just shut their holes and look at their own game before starting to point fingers at others. So I guess you take on c3, and I don't see the point of this. You just take, don't you? But oh, you lost some time. What happened? That was strange and completely unnecessary, because I think black was doing super fine in the final position. Yeah, just take e5 like this, and this is horrible. Horrible for white. Still pknm in the lead, 5-3. Although I would find it very difficult to comment and stream with the insane speed that the players have in the opening. They just blitz out 10, 15, or maybe even 20 moves in just a few seconds. Could this be a problem for white? Maybe take here and pawn e4. This is certainly an awkward square for the knight. And I wouldn't be surprised if black takes here on d3 soon. Oh, this is interesting. Maybe bishop e2, knight takes d3. But now he lost the chance to pseudo-sacrifice. I'm not sure if it was good, but this actually looks good for white after knight e5. Black can't allow capturing on g6, I think. So I'm wonder if white could have played something like knight c5 here. Putting pressure on b7. Knight takes, pawn takes, and hangs. Pawn is hanging on b7, knight is hanging on f6. And what is it that I'm not seeing? Was there anything wrong with taking on c6? Okay, so maybe bishop takes here then. pknm is a very careful guy, but maybe he was too careful this time. Okay. I would love to get rid of this knight b3. Knight b3 to c5 just to relocate it. And black doesn't have any diags in hand, so pawn takes, knight takes, and another piece trade here. All black has is knights, 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 knights. And they are no good in this position. More or less no good. So I'm wondering what the general plan here for white is. Do you pick up the c7 pawn as well? Trying to mend the light squares a little bit. That makes sense. And I suppose you want to put a pawn here on f3 as well. And you probably give up your rook. Although rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, knight d2, and all of a sudden the last rank is starting to look very weak. I'm not sure this was any better, though. Because let's say king here, you could probably take here and pawn e2. The momentum has switched in favor of xuanet. This is the type of gritty defense that pknm is actually quite good at. So maybe this queen can pick up a pawn or a rook, and then pawn e2 maybe. Because you would like to have a pawn here as white. Possibly threatening just to take the rook here. Queen takes, knight e2 check, for instance. Excellent defense, threatening both queens and also covering e2. And this is swing in pknm's favor, or is it? Black has a ton of stuff here. That should be enough. And no visible mate here, so you could probably just play something positional. Yeah, looking quite hopeless for check, pick up the rook, and I expect resign. Check. Okay. So 5-4 in favor of pknm when we go into the last game. And that game was an epic game as well. White had a clear advantage here out of the opening. But then bishop, queen d1 was bad. You'd need to take with on c4. Yeah, this is the right way. And now you don't take on c4, you just move your queen to avoid any knight d2 checks. Because after this, it's ugly, 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 ugly. But this was bad. Although knight e2 looks good still. still very dangerous. Knight g4 coming. Yeah, this is winning. Okay. The last game of the match and of this live broadcast with a 20-second delay. Black is down a pawn, but he has some nice compensation. Although I'm not sure about the whole knight b7 idea here. Wasn't there anything better? Because now, I mean, white could just go pawn h6, I suppose. I'm always a bit worried when I move my rook to the e file when there's no particular target. And look at the f2 square, it's just weak here. I don't think it's a good idea to just put the rook here on e1. Or I should say it could be a bad idea. But right now it looks like a fantastic idea. Oh, this is horrible for black. Knight f5 check. No, actually knight f5, king here. Pick up this and you have a perpetual here. So don't take here because it's mate in one. Due to the rook pinning the bishop. And white is putting a lot of pressure here in the center with the two semi-open or even no semi-open files. The king is stuck in the center. And this pawn is such a nuisance. This could very well be over soon. Threatening a discovered check. And I wonder, do you take here or? So this protects the f2 square because of the pin. And it's possible to take this, isn't it? Because knight takes, you have queen takes d8. Rook takes e3 looks very strong. And finally saw it. And queen takes d8 mate, and it's 5-all. Very interesting play there. Not maybe the most precise games, but very exciting ones. Let's have a quick look then at the calendar. Tomorrow, Spinal Tap xuanet. I won't be able to cover that. We'll see about Tuesday. I think I won't be able to cover any of those matches, but you never know. Have they updated this? Yes, they have. And as you can see, zyxon is now in 3rd place when it comes to game percentage. And he has played blitzbullet and won 6-4 after some really nice games. Okay, thank you so much for watching. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.